August 6th, 1945, 8:15 a.m. In 43 seconds, 80,000 people will be gone. But this isn't the story you think it is. Everyone knows about Hiroshima. What they don't know is that Japan didn't surrender. Not after the first bomb, not after 80,000 deaths, not even after Nagasaki 3 days later. So what actually broke them? August 9th, midnight. While Nagasaki still burned, Soviet tanks crossed into Manchuria. 1.5 million troops, the largest invasion force in Asian history. Japan's worst nightmare wasn't the atomic bomb, it was this. Here's what your history teacher never told you. Japan had a plan. Operation Ketsugo. Sacrifice millions in a final homeland defense. Force America into a conditional surrender. It was insane, but it could work. Against one enemy. The Japanese War Council had done the math. America would invade from the south. Bloody, but survivable. They'd fought Americans for 4 years. They understood them. But the Soviets, from the north? A two-front homeland war? Impossible. The Red Army tore through Manchuria like paper. Japan's Kwantung Army, 700,000 men, their elite force, collapsed in 3 days. The Soviets didn't take prisoners, they didn't negotiate, and they were 400 miles from Tokyo. Emperor Hirohito had one fear greater than defeat: Soviet occupation. He'd seen what happened in Berlin. The rapes, the executions, the communist puppet governments. If the Soviets took Japan, the emperor wouldn't just lose, he'd disappear. August 9th, 11 p.m., the Supreme War Council finally met. For weeks, they'd been deadlocked 3-3 on surrender. Even after 2 atomic bombs, half wanted to keep fighting. Then the Soviet news arrived. The vote was still 3-3. For the first time in 2,000 years, the emperor broke his silence. Hirohito spoke in the council, his voice shaking. "I cannot bear to see my innocent people suffer any longer." But look closer at his words. Not atomic bombs, not devastation, timing. The race against time, 4:15. Japan had one chance: surrender to America before the Soviets could claim territory. If they surrendered to both powers, Japan would be split like Korea, like Germany. The emperor on trial in Moscow. The Americans were brutal, but predictable. The Soviets, they'd erase everything. The impossible choice, 4:45. Defense Minister Anami said it perfectly. Would it not be wondrous for the whole nation to be destroyed like a beautiful flower? He wasn't being poetic. He meant it. Death with honor versus survival with shame. But now there was a third option: survival under Stalin. August 14th, midnight. Hirohito recorded the surrender announcement. Military officers stormed the palace to steal the recording. They failed. At noon the next day, Japanese citizens heard their God Emperor's voice for the first time. He never mentioned the atomic bombs. He mentioned a new and most cruel bomb, and the Soviet Union's entry into the war. Here's the controversial part. Some historians argue Truman knew. The Soviets had promised to invade Japan 3 months after Germany fell. That deadline? August 8th. America dropped the bomb on August 6th. Coincidence? The second bomb on August 9th, the same day the Soviets invaded? Truman's diary entry that week: "Finny Japs when that comes about." What if the Soviets never invaded? Japanese archives suggest the War Council would have remained deadlocked. They had 5,000 kamikaze planes ready, 2.3 million soldiers for homeland defense, and a population trained to fight with bamboo spears. Operation Downfall, the U.S. invasion, estimated 1 million American casualties. Japanese casualties? Incalculable. The atomic bombs killed 200,000 people. Horrific. But Japan's leaders had already accepted that level of death. Tokyo firebombing? 100,000 dead in one night. They kept fighting. 67 cities burned. They kept fighting. The difference? Those deaths were to one enemy they thought they could outlast. The Soviet factor. 745. In 6 days, the Soviets captured 674,000 Japanese prisoners, more than America had captured in 4 years. They pushed into Korea, into the Kuril Islands, into southern Sakhalin. By August 15th, they were preparing to invade Hokkaido, the Japanese main island. The emperor wasn't surrendering to stop the dying. He was surrendering to choose who he died to. The historical cover-up. 820. After the war, America needed a narrative. We won because of technological superiority. The atomic bomb as the ultimate weapon. It fit perfectly into the Cold War story. Meanwhile, Soviet entry into the Pacific War got footnoted. Why? Because it complicated the clean narrative. And because acknowledging Soviet effectiveness wasn't politically convenient. The evidence. 855. Foreign Minister Togo's testimony. The Soviet entry into the war played a much greater role than the atomic bombs in inducing Japan to surrender. Prince Konoe. Fundamentally, the thing that brought an end to the war was the Soviet entry. Even Hirohito himself, when asked by his chamberlain, said the Soviet invasion was the primary reason. The strategic reality. 930. Think about it strategically. The atomic bomb was terrifying but limited. 2 bombs, 2 cities. How many more did America have? Japan didn't know. But conventional bombing had already destroyed 67 cities. They could endure more. The Soviets? Unlimited forces on a land border. No ocean to cross, and closing fast. The diplomatic dead end. 10 o'clock. Stalin was supposed to be neutral. They hoped he'd broker a conditional surrender. Keep the emperor. Keep some territories. When the Soviets invaded, that door slammed shut. Suddenly, there was no path to negotiated peace. Only unconditional surrender or total annihilation from 2 directions. What happened in Manchuria haunted Japanese leadership. The Soviets captured nearly 600,000 Japanese soldiers. Half died in labor camps. Civilians? Estimates range from 45,000 to 185,000 dead. The speed was shocking. The brutality was expected. And it was coming to the homeland next. Here's the brutal math that changed everything. Against America alone, bloody homeland defense, millions dead, but possible survival of the empire and emperor. Against America and Soviets, certain partition, certain occupation by Stalin, certain end of the imperial system, possible execution of Hirohito. The choice became obvious. The human cost, 1140. This isn't about justifying the atomic bombs. 200,000 dead is 200,000 tragedies. But understanding why Japan surrendered matters. It wasn't just about the bomb's destructive power. It was about geopolitical reality crashing down in 72 hours. 2 superpowers, no escape routes, no diplomatic options, no time. The legacy, 1215. Today the narrative persists. Atomic bombs ended World War II. It's simpler, it's cleaner. It makes America the sole victor. But the Japanese sources tell a different story. And that story matters because it shapes how we think about nuclear weapons, about warfare, about what actually forces nations to surrender. Closing, 1250. So what really forced Japan to surrender? Not 1 bomb, not 2 bombs, but the sound of Soviet tanks crossing the border while their cities turned to ash. The atomic bomb gave them devastation. The Soviet invasion gave them something worse. No way out. And in that moment, surrender became the only rational choice. Final hook, 1325. The decision that ended World War II wasn't made in the flash of atomic fire. It was made in the cold calculation that being occupied by 1 superpower was better than being torn apart by 2. History remembers the mushroom cloud, but Japan was looking at the map.